Is Lance Leipold addicted to dominating the in-state recruiting trail? We discussed four-star Kaden Snyder, along with three-star Landen Anderson commits to KU on this bonus episode of Locked on Jayhawks.
You are Locked on Jayhawks, your daily podcast on the Kansas Jayhawks. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Derek Johnson here at D Johnson Radio on Twitter. This is Locked on Jayhawks, and thank you for making it your first listen every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there. No matter how you catch in the show, whether it's on our YouTube page where you can like and subscribe, or anywhere that you get your podcast on the audio side, we're going to be breaking down KU football's two latest commits on this bonus episode of the show. Kaden Snyder, a four-star offensive lineman, and a defensive lineman, Landen Anderson, as KU football really beefing up the line of scrimmage, the guys in the trenches in that class of 2026, which continues to roll, which continues to look really good for KU. So we'll get into that. We'll get into a little bit of scouting reports on both players, what they bring to the table, and also a little bit on the future offensive and defensive line rooms for KU football. So let's start with Kaden Snyder. He is the four-star recruit in the state of Kansas, and he's from Salina, Kansas. He was a top 2 player currently ranked in the state of Kansas, committed to Kansas, Lance Leipold, both these kids in the class of 2026. The offer list for Kaden Snyder included Arkansas, Kansas State, Duke, Wisconsin, and it's a big deal anytime Kansas football is landing a four-star recruit, and that is exactly what this is, and it continues to keep things rolling on the Kansas side of things. Snyder is the 6th in-state recruit for KU. And of the 11 top-ranked players on 24/7 Sports in the state of Kansas, the Jayhawks now have 6 of them committed to the school. So it is an unbelievable run that Lance Leipold and company are on in-state recruiting at this point in time. And Snyder also, he is the highest-rated recruit for KU on 24/7 Sports. So you added your highest-rated recruit, and he is your second offensive lineman after you just added one over the weekend. Now, when you look at the other side of the ball, Landen Anderson, he's a 3-star defensive lineman from Edmond, Oklahoma. He picked KU over offers from Iowa State, Oklahoma State, and UNLV. So, a couple other Big 12 schools in there, and then a good group of 5 school. And in the case of Anderson, when you add him on to Snyder, you're talking about KU now having 9 commits in the class of 2026 for the Jayhawks. And for Anderson, he becomes the 5th defensive player in the class, as well as the 1st defensive lineman. So you're looking to always add really to the trenches each and every year in each and every recruiting class with the amount of guys you play at each position and rotate in. And because you always want to have depth there, because those are key positions to have depth. And KU gets their 1st defensive lineman. And local kid in Kaden Snyder, Landen Anderson, not local kid because he's from Oklahoma, but it's local-ish, right? He's still within the same distance-ish. And honestly, like the distances between, to Edmond, Oklahoma to Lawrence versus Lawrence to Salina, is not that, it's not that much further. So interesting there. Let's get into a little bit, though, on what Snyder and Anderson specifically bring to the table. This is Locked on Jayhawks. Our episode of the show is brought to you by TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, every within the 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. Continuing on with this bonus episode of the show, don't forget to check out our KU UCF preview for today with Locked on Jayhawks. All right, Kaden Snyder, the 4-star recruit for KU, 6'5", 265-pound offensive lineman, plays at Salina Central High School in Salina, Kansas. And 24/7 Sports has him graded as a 90 4-star. He is the number 2 player in the class right now. He is a top 250 nationally ranked player overall, and he is a top 25 player as an offensive tackle. You look at On 3, it has him as about an 87.7 graded 3-star, and overall in the 24/7 composite, Snyder is a 4-star that is top 400 nationally. So, I mean, this is a very big deal to land him, and very high-level recruit that you're bringing in that any school would be happy to bring in. And in watching the highlights, this dude absolutely pancakes other players. I mean, obviously you would expect that to be the case, but he's driving them off the ball with ease. Obviously it'll be a tougher to higher level once he gets to Kansas and in the Big 12, but he also can add a lot of weight to that frame, right? You're standing at 6'5". Like, if he's showing this much strength now, what kind of strength is he going to have if you do add that weight to him where he is, closer to 300 pounds? And that said, it is a lot of weight to add, right? If you're talking about somebody who's 260, 265, this isn't as easy as a project of, okay, you're already 290, can you get 15 more pounds? Like 40 pounds is a lot of weight. The good news is, I think the world of Matt Gildersleeve, who's KU's strength and conditioning coach, and I would fully trust the plan that they're going to put on it. That his blend of already power, I think hand usage, his blend of athleticism, right? He's a very athletic offensive lineman. He plays basketball for them, makes him a huge potential player and building block on the offensive line for KU down the road. And when I specifically think of KU's offense, I think of this as like the perfect fit too, not just because Matt Gildersleeve, you trust him to add that weight that's going to be necessary and needed for him to compete at the Big 12 level, but also because when you think of KU's offense, you think about, the quarterback in the run game, the quarterback rolling out and moving and the pocket moving with him. You think about the wide zone plays for KU where they're stretching to the outside. You think about linemen pulling and getting out ahead on a screen or whatever it is. There are a lot of ways that KU uses their linemen and asks of them to be a more athletic offensive line, right? And when you think about what Snyder is doing right now, he's doing just that. He's an athletic offensive lineman who can get out. And so I think that makes him a great fit for KU in addition to the potential that he shows just as an individual player. Then you look at Anderson, who is the 3-star defensive lineman from Santa Fe High School in Edmond, Oklahoma. He's listed at 6'3", 275 pounds. Now, he's unrated on the recruiting site, so we'll see where he comes in terms of those. I would imagine he's going to be a future defensive tackle, but he has been playing defensive end at the high school level, so entirely possible that happens. But typically KU's defensive ends are, the strong defensive end is maybe closer to 255, 260, 265, and he's already 275. You're going to add more weight once it comes to KU. Profiles more to being a defensive tackle at KU. But the cool thing is, if you go and watch his high school tape, when he is playing defensive end, he looks like even a pretty athletic defensive end. Like, there's clips of him, being in pass coverage. There's clips of him like chasing a running back or a receiver who caught a screen pass from behind and catching up to him. He's a very athletic player. He's got like a quick twitch. He does a good job of kind of jumping inside a gap. And if he's doing that as a defensive end, that's going to bode well to his strength or his athleticism at defensive tackle, right? If you're an athletic defensive end, you're going to be an even more athletic defensive tackle. I think this is very similar to Snyder in that way, though. You have a very athletic player, but you're going to be looking to add more weight to him, right? Because if you are playing defensive tackle, you're going to want him to get up to, 290, 295, maybe 300 pounds. And the question will be if you can keep that athleticism and speed and twitch when you are, gaining more weight. But I think there's a lot to like here as well. And I think in the same way that you trust Matt Gildersleeve to get Kaden Snyder to have his best body possible to be the most impactful player that he can and take advantage of his athleticism and natural gifts. I think it's the same thing for Landen Anderson and what you expect Matt Gildersleeve to do. And then you end up with a really athletic defensive tackle in your program down the road. So I really like this one if you're KU. And I think it's something where, if you're not the Alabamas and the Georgias of the world, where you're landing these kids who are already 6'6", 320 pounds, you do have to get a little bit more creative with your line recruits, right? Because the 6'6", 320-pound kids who are ready to play in year one in college football, they don't grow on trees, right? They don't happen very often. It's maybe a couple of them every class, and you're not getting those kids. So you have to get players who have good frames that you think can build out, who have good athleticism, who have good, smarts or traits, whatever it is you're looking for, that you can try to develop the strength and the weight and stuff on your time, but they have the other gifts that you can't necessarily teach. And I think that's kind of the case for both these players with Snyder and Anderson. By the way, Kaden Snyder, is he related to Bill Snyder? Is this a huge blow to Kansas State? We'll discuss that on tomorrow's episode. No, I'm just joking. I don't think that is the case. Anyway, let's talk more about the offensive line and defensive line room for KU. This episode of the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Super Bowl 59's here, featuring the Chiefs. Pretty cool. One game, two teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on the action. They have live betting all game long. You can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from the kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature even lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app today or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, finishing things up on this bonus episode of the show. Again, don't forget to check out our Kansas UCF preview. We'll have a KU UCF recap after the game on Tuesday night for you. So the future of the offensive line and defense tackle room. So when you look at Snyder coming in, you look at the future of the offensive line room. Obviously, he doesn't join until 2026. If he does profile more to being a tackle based on the 6'5 frame, but, I don't think it would shock me either if he was a guard. And if he was a guard, he'd be a heck of a pulling guard with that athleticism. But you look at some of the young players in the tackle room for KU. So Carter Lavrewski, just redshirted this year, redshirt freshman. Haven't heard much about how that's going so far either way. David Abajian, redshirt freshman. He's just coming off an injury. And then you look at a lot of sophomores in the offensive tackle room for KU. Tuigo Lovato, who could end up being a guard. Calvin Clements, James Livingston, those are all redshirt sophomores. And then DeAndre Harper and Jack Tanner are all true sophomores. So in a perfect world, all these young players are playing well for KU, and you don't need to put Snyder on the field for a couple years down the road. But there is that obvious possibility that Snyder is a Calvin Clements, right? He's a 4-star recruit, that he comes in and it's like, okay, we need to work on his body year one, but by the end of year one or by the start of year two or spring ball or whatever, it's like, no, we got to put this guy in the 2 deep. And then he is, getting time by the time he's a year 2 or a year 3 player at KU, because he is seen as that kind of level guy. So you look at it, certainly competition down the road, but and obviously they just landed an offensive lineman as well that could factor in there. Obviously the guard position, maybe there's a little bit more opening right now, because you look at it and it's like, if Gorchika, which Gorchika could be a tackle too, but if Gorchika's a guard, Kobe Baines, DK Stearns, if he's back, those are all seniors on the roster. And you look at the guard position, maybe there's a little less like guys you circle at and say, oh, they'll be on the roster in 3 years from now, right? Becomes a little bit tougher. You look at the defensive line spot, and for Landen Anderson, if he's going to play defensive tackle, by the time he joins in 2026, so on this year's team upcoming in 2025, DJ Withers, Tommy Dunn, Keenan Caldwell, Gage Keys. All 4 of those guys are redshirt seniors. I do think Gage Keys might be able to work another year into his career, so that one ends up being a TBD. But then you'd be looking at a redshirt junior Blake Harold, redshirt junior Marcus Calvin, and a second-year Josiah Hammond. There's a lot of opening besides that, and KU likes to rotate 4, 5, 6 defensive tackles if they can. So you look at it, and you don't see those guys get on the field right away a lot because, you're trying to work on their bodies. But in the case of Blake Harold, he arguably was KU's best defensive tackle this past season and really took off as the season went on. And that was in his second season. So, that's kind of the way I look at it here with Anderson, where it's like, if you have a good enough first year working on your body and impress the coaching staff, by the time you get to a redshirt freshman year in year 2, you could be part of that 2 deep. You could be, earn your way into the starting lineup or starting level snaps. And I think that is a very real possibility if everything clicks together. But, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it takes guys 3 or 4 years. But either way, I love the potential of both these pickups for KU and how they could impact the roster down the road, whether it's 2027, 2028, 2029. That's what you're always building for the future while worrying about the now. And KU got some good future here. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On Jayhawks. You can find our show anywhere you get your podcast, including on our YouTube page. Again, don't forget to check out our Kansas UCF preview as well. See you next time with LOJ.